And then for those of you that are just joining, welcome to the March Coalition meeting. If you could, in the chat, just go ahead and put your name, your preferred pronouns, and then your organization, if applicable, that would be great. And I think it's starting to slow down with participants coming in. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot that we want to cover today. Vico, if you could go ahead, I think 2 slides to the agenda slide, that'd be wonderful. Okay, so here is our agenda for today. We're going to start. We have Mayday Levine here, who's going to do the member spotlight. She's going to share about the Community Consensus Collaborative, otherwise known as C3. Then we'll have an update from our YHAT members. And then I think probably the biggest update is going to be from the Youth Mental Health Summit working groups. So we have the coalition activities and the communications working groups that have been really hard at work getting everything ready for the Youth Mental Health Summit. And then we'll end with the governance working group. And so we have also been very hard at work putting together the bylaws for the coalition. So we sent those out to you earlier for your review. If you didn't get a chance to look at it, totally fine. I'm going to highlight some of the pieces of it that I think are probably the most applicable. And then we're going to give you guys a month or so to really get a chance to review it before we move to vote on the bylaws. And then finally, we'll end with announcements and next steps. And I'm just seeing some people in the waiting room. So hold on just a second. Let me get them in here. So a full agenda for today. Vico, if you could go ahead to the next slide. So I'm really excited to introduce Mayday Levine. We've actually been talking. So the steering committee has been talking with Mayday around how can the coalition and C3 work together more collaboratively. And so this is one of the things that we came up with. We really wanted to have her come and present the C3 initiative to you all. This is, from what I understand, her baby. Like, she envisioned this and has really been running with it. They're doing some great things. I am a part of it as well. And I think that there's a lot that we might be able to collaborate around. So if you could, while she's giving, the presentation today, kind of be thinking about like, how should the coalition collaborate? And then also for anyone that's looking to join another group, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend joining C3 as another group if you have time to do so. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayday. And Vico, I think you can advance the slide maybe 1 or 2 slides ahead.
Great. I'm glad you skipped that picture because I know it's a crater, but I don't know the name. So I would have been stumped right off the block. So hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I told Raquel and others that I've been getting the updates from the PBHC. I have to make sure I get the acronym right. I reverse it in my head all the time. And it's amazing what this group has accomplished in the last few years and just, getting those updates. So it's a pleasure to be here. So I'm with Arizona Complete Health. My title is Senior Director of Health Services. And more and more, I think about the things that me and my team, I think we have 21 or 22 people who report up through me. We're with the Medicaid side, so our focus is, probably very much aligned with everybody on this call. And we really do the non-medical parts of Medicaid services. So not as much therapy, not as much physical health, but very much housing, supported employment, tribal relations, cultural responsivity, making sure we have programming for people who identify as LGBTQIA+. I know I'm leaving things out. Our peer and family services. I think I already said housing and support services. So this is a communal brainchild of honestly myself and Paige Rogers, who's a consultant with Community Cares. She's up in Maricopa County, so I don't know how many folks know her, but she's really amazing. She's a social worker. She had worked for Access and DBHS and just knows the Medicaid system inside and out. And so we really wanted to develop a way that people could come together, recognizing that homelessness, for example, right? It impacts prisons. People get arrested, so it impacts police departments, prisons, libraries, museums, providers, of course, members, families, and communities are the biggest part of that. But homelessness is something that we all know is a huge problem, right? It's related to, sometimes it's behavioral health or substance abuse, but at the core nexus is a lack of affordable housing. There is just not enough housing that people can afford, and so we end up with people experiencing homelessness. So we wanted a place where people could come together from various walks of life, and so this is the C3, the Community Consensus Collaborative. And those are live links, so I'm guessing that Raquel will probably share, or others will probably share this after. And I just got to confirm that my speaking language is Spanish, and it is not. So in case, I'm going to make that go away. So that's a link there where you can learn more about this. Next slide, please. And so in 2024, we had a culminating event. We launched in 2023. We went for 2 years, so through 2023 and 2024. You can see there for our last event, we had 75 participants. 22 of those were advocates, and that's the most exciting thing to see. So members, families, people who can speak from a perspective of lived experience. We had over 30 providers. We had 10 public entities, and we had 9 community-based organizations. So we get people from the U of A, Western Arizona College. We love to have our academic institutions partner because they're a big part of our workforce development. We get people from the legal system, nonprofits, which is really exciting. So we had been working on stigma and value-based purchasing as those first two sort of big problems that we wanted to solve as a group. Next slide, please. And so some of the highlights that came out of those 2 years, we developed workforce development awards. We presented them to COPE Community Service, Devereaux Advanced Services, and Via Elegante Assisted Living and Memory Care. So this was for the 2 years we had looked at workforce development because it is tied to value-based purchasing. Let me pause and see if anybody needs me to say one sentence on what value-based purchasing is. Yes, okay, thank you for saying something. Value-based purchasing is the idea, it's in opposition. So we used to have what we called a fee for service. You go to the doctor, they bill us for a visit. You go back, they bill us for another visit. You go get tested, they bill us for the testing, right? It's like for every interaction, there's a bill. Value-based purchasing basically tells providers, if we're looking at 500 members and you keep them out of the hospital for a year and you save $2 million, we're going to share that profit with you. Alternatively, there's a downside, we call it risk. If you don't help people get better and their utilization goes up, their care costs more, you have to pay us back, us being the health insurance. So that's value-based purchasing in a nutshell. We're buying outcomes rather than every individual service. So the idea is that providers are more motivated to do things that actually help people get into recovery, stay in recovery, rather than, just the more I see somebody, the more money I make. Okay, so workforce development is tied to value-based because you need a well-trained workforce that stays with you a couple of years, builds those member relationship, and really changes outcomes. At that winter event, we had some speakers, and one of these names, of course, is familiar, and I had to bold it so that you would stand out. But we had a talk from Kodak on addressing NIMBYism, or not in my backyard. So it was a training on how to sort of convince neighborhoods that collaboratively we can provide services in neighborhoods that can make the neighborhoods safer, but sort of how to work through that community reconciliation or dialogic process to do that. We also had a presentation on Elder Alliance and tackling ageism. So United Way and University of Arizona presented. Some of you might know Dr. Linda Hollis. She used to be Linda Russell, and she has a connection to Ephraim Hollis at La Frontera. Next slide. And so some of our accomplishments for this is just 4 out of a list of like 30 things. We kicked off in 2023. We all came together for this big event. We had over 100 people, and we brainstormed up some solutions to these problems and created work groups. We had 8 work groups, and they took these ideas and developed solutions. It was really energizing. So some of the things the work groups did, they developed and published materials to promote recovery concepts and curricula through partnership with JTED. So curriculum that could go to social work schools, counseling schools, you know, any higher or any bachelor schools too, to really talk about the importance of lived experience and that person-first, strengths-based recovery model. They developed a commercial about first episode psychosis and where to get help. So that's actually a radio spot that is just really neat. We offered civic leadership for peers and families. So that's the idea of being able to advocate for yourself, right? Probably most people on this call, when you go to the doctor, you know, you can ask them, I haven't been feeling well, what can I do to get better? Or if they prescribe you something that makes you feel gross, you're empowered to say something and to ask for something different. A lot of our members don't know how to do that. They've never been taught the skills or sort of given permission to do that advocacy. And then we created some interactive analytic reports. So we created data that we can post to our website that providers can get on and see the data about their own members, which is really cool. All right, next slide. So for the next 2 years, starting in April, we're going to kick off our next 2-year cycle, and we're going to call it the C3 Net and Whole Person Care. So C3 Net is sort of in response to the fraud, waste, and abuse that happened in Arizona over the last several years. I don't know if folks know, but the state lost $2 billion out of the, I mean, it's just devastating. And the housing we could have built with that $2 billion. Okay, enough said. But we're going to develop some collaborative processes for how we neutralize risk and empower and help communities to thrive. So not just protecting from fraud or eliminating fraud, but getting to a place of thriving. And then we're going to talk about whole person care. And we'll do this by establishing goals, objectives, and making sure that we meet locally throughout the state. So on calls such as this, where there's a Pima County focus. Next slide. So we hope that this sounds appealing. You know, it really is energizing. It's fun. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to see, I think, in this age where so many of us and our agencies are feeling threatened externally, you know, potential loss of funds, loss of coverage, we might lose people off the Medicaid roster, et cetera. This is a really good way to get connected to that bigger picture, to stay connected to people outside of Pima County in a way that I really do think will help sort of, you know, we're not in it alone. If we pool our resources and really work together, we can probably, you know, we can do amazing things. So that where it says in blue, subscribe for C3 Communications, that's a live link. You can sign up and you'll get all this information and updates throughout the year. The next event is April 22nd at the Ability 360 facility in Phoenix. You can join by person, we hope you do, but you can also join virtually. So there's an option there. I think that was my last slide.
And Vico, maybe we can send out these links as well, so that folks have them. One thing I just want to add, just what I've noticed based on my involvement with C3 is it is nice how it's a statewide initiative. So, you know, I'm coming at it, I do a lot of work in Pima County, and it's nice to actually be talking with other people that are working in other regions of the state. So especially for those of us that do a lot in Pima County, I think it helps, right? To kind of have that correspondence with others. But thank you so much, Mayday. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so we'll be sure to send out links too, so that people can join, and especially that April 22nd meeting, I think might be a good one for them to kind of get introduced to the initiative on.
Perfect. And before I stop talking completely, I'll just give a shout out to Christopher Gonzalez, who's very engaged with this group, and he's plugged in. He's a key player for us. So if you have any questions, I would say reach out to me, but reach out to Christopher too. You all know how wonderful he is. So there he is.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you
Nate.
so much for letting me join and giving me this time today. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
You too. We appreciate it. All right. So the next little update that we wanted to allow for is for our Y Hat members. And I was just looking, I think there's some that are on the call. So if we have some updates from Y Hat, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Alrighty, hi guys. My name is Bella. I'm the president of Y Hat, and then I also believe in this call we have Dee. Dee's our secretary. So just to give a little bit of update, last time I do think we did talk about how we just had our first submission, but we had already uploaded our intro podcast. Now we have our very first podcast up, and it is so good. I'm not just saying that because it's my project. I genuinely think it's so good, and the story and the way that it was told is so beautiful. It's so perfect. So I do think that we have that like up and everything. I don't know if you guys have seen it or have been able to, but if not, I think we'll send a link in the chat because it really is like something we're excited about. And then besides from the podcast, we also have our March posters ready to be printed, and I'm pretty sure we'll be getting that distributed at our next meeting within this month to get that up and start getting all that ready. We also have people posting it for like social medias and everything, and then we also have our April poster done as well. So we're getting on schedule, guys. And then lastly, our website is now up. It has been revamped and redesigned, and it is amazing. And I'm just so excited because I think this is going to be our last meeting with everybody at the PBHC, but I just think it's really important that I tell you guys like how like excited and how proud I am of everybody who's like worked on this project, because I genuinely think that once this podcast starts to take off and like people start to submit their stories, it can actually create a difference. There's already I think about 20 views on it, so please make sure to go check it out, everybody, and thank you so much.
Thank you. If you could share the link to the podcast in the chat and even the website, that would be wonderful. And then Vico will be sure to send it out as well to the members that they get it in an email. That's so exciting. Any questions or feedback?
I just want to say I'm really proud of the Youth Health Action Team, and I think you're all really, really cool.
I agree. I can't wait to check out the podcast. It's really cool. All right. So the next item on our agenda is a Youth Mental Health Summit update. And I think there's probably a few different people that might want to give an update on this. So I'm not sure, is Jennifer on the call? Vico, would you mind kind of starting with an update? And then if the communications team wants to jump on, they can as well. I'm not seeing Jennifer.
Yeah, no problem at all. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. The communications and activities work group have been super busy at work getting all of the details and all of the final decisions made for this year's Youth Mental Health Summit. Some updates that I have for you all include our registration has been a hit, has been a success. We've already been moving registrants over to a wait list, and I'll be sending out communications next week, ensuring that those who did register and get a slot are still planning to attend, and if not, being able to pull some of those folks from the wait list into the attendance form. We've also been working with Jennifer Contreras from TUSD to bring in a group of students that are connected with the Mexican American Student Services Department programs. And so we'll have about 40 youth from that group that will be at the summit. We also have about 10 to 12 youth that are going to be attending through PEP's Pima Be Free Youth Coalition that meets out of the JVYC Youth Center on the south side. And we'll also have probably half, if not a little bit over half of the Y Hat that will also be in attendance. So it's a big achievement and accomplishment for our coalition to be able to have that youth participation this year. Yesterday, the communications and activities work group met to vote through all of the different workshop and keynote speaker proposals that we received. Let me tell you, it was not an easy task to get through all of those proposals and identify who we were going to move forward with. Just for some general context, we received, I believe it was either 21 or 22 proposals for a total of 11 slots. So at best, we could accept 50% of the submissions that we received. So it was definitely super challenging, but we're really happy with the proposals that we received, and we really want to express our gratitude to everyone that took the time to submit a proposal and wanted to be involved with this year's summit. We also completed our site visit today of the Hauenstein Professional Learning space, and are really happy to see that the space is going to be super conducive to what we're trying to do. And we're really excited to just get a chance to be in person with all of you, expand the coalition's reach, and get a space where we're working hand in hand with the youth that we advocate for through this group. So feeling really, really grateful overall. Wanted to see if anyone else from the activities work group wanted to give any other update. If not, we can go ahead and turn it over to the communications group to see what updates they may want to share.
I wasn't able to stay on for the whole meeting, and I was wondering if you would tell everyone who the speakers are going to be for the different categories.
Yes, so I am in the process of drafting up an email that will be sent out updating both the communications and the activities team with some changes that were made, but I do have that list. I will also include those finalized proposals in next week's PBHC newsletter. So keep an eye out for that if you want to see in more detail. And then closer to the event, also probably the week before or so, I'll send all registrants an email with the description of the workshop, etc., so that you all can start thinking about what sessions you want to attend for each slot that's available. But I can share that information real quick. Let me see if I can pull it up. So the keynote speaker that
Hey, Vico.
Yeah.
Do you think it might be better? Sorry to interject. I'm just curious if it might be better practice to notify those who applied first before making public announcements here. And then, Kate, would that be okay with you and everyone else on the call if we just do a general announcement after we've given that due diligence to notify those who put time and effort into proposals?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think also that way, in case there's any changes, in case anyone says that they're not able to attend or there's a last minute change, I think it would be better to confirm that way. But there will be an email coming out to those of us in the activities and in the communications work groups with a couple of updates. But yes, general announcements I think would be better once we are able to confirm with all of the folks that submitted proposals.
Thanks for letting me interject there. I just think it's important for the, maintaining the health of relationships and the time and effort people put into it.
I did want to also mention that one of the things that the activities work group decided to move forward with is having some resources available at the event via collaborations with La Frontera services and also the health department. So one really exciting thing is that we're going to be able to have the Teen Mobile Health Clinic on site at the summit this year. And so there will be incentives for teens that do go check out the space, even just checking out like their resources, their pamphlets, etc. And so that will be on site. We're also hoping to have La Frontera on site to help youth and also inform our adults on ways to refer community to the You Are Not Alone counseling services. And the other decision that was made is that there will be a photo booth at the summit this year. So come ready to be goofy and silly and take some photos in our photo booth. We're going to have a coalition specific backdrop that is going to get developed in the next week or so to make that happen. So those were my announcements. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add anything else.
I'll jump in. You're very comprehensive. Did you mention the Teen Mobile Clinic by chance? Perfect. And then we also have confirmation that Coffee Times is going to support us with our coffee bar again. So for those of you who need caffeine to be able to function and learn early in the morning or late in the afternoon, whichever, no one's judging, we will be able to offer that again with their support. So if you get the chance and you're out in the community, make sure you thank them for that. And Vico, did you mention also the goodie bags by chance, needing materials?
Oh no, that's a good reminder. So we're still looking for materials to include in the goodie bags for the summit. We have some materials that are going to be included from United Way, also from Teen Lifeline. But if you or anyone of your programs have flyers, it doesn't necessarily have to be giveaways. It could be brochures or flyers that contain educational pieces on the different programs that you all offer. That would be great. All summit attendees will be receiving a little canvas bag that says Youth Mental Health Summit on it, and we'll include the t-shirt that also we approved this week and sent to have screen printed. And we would love to include materials that highlight the organizations involved in the coalition. So if you have any materials that you would like to either have us pick up or you would like to drop off, you can feel free to either contact myself or Leah Duncan, who's on the call here. She is our work group lead for the goodie bags.
Real quick, Vico, I apologize if you already mentioned this. Will there be any raffle prizes?
So we will have a couple raffle prizes. We are going to raffle off a couple of $25 gift cards that we have. We're trying to think of the most strategic way to do that to encourage folks to stay for the entire duration of the event. And so I think we're going to have a couple of those raffles for the teens who check out the Teen Mobile Health Clinic and also for adult attendees. So I don't know exactly how the raffle is going to work out at this point. I'm not super sure. We've thought of all of the details like tickets or how we're going to identify, etc. But there will be, I think, at least 3 gift cards that will be raffled out.
All right, let me know because we might have some things we could add to those.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And Vico, there's a question in the chat from Stacy. What's the due date for the goodie bag drop-off stuff?
Yes, what is the due date? Let me see. Let me check my notes. We talked about this yesterday. The deadline for Summit bag materials is next week, March 12th. So if you all could get us your materials, either to me or to Leah by March 12th, that would be phenomenal. That gives us some time to put the goodie bags together without feeling too stressed about the deadline. Thank you, Stacy, for that question.
Vico, I just put my phone and email in the chat address.
Awesome.
You can drop stuff off at libraries, pretty much any library. They can send it to me. And I think we're aiming for like what, 175?
Yes,
As far as numbers? Okay.
Yeah, I don't see your number in or your email in the chat, so I don't know if maybe you sent that as a direct message to someone. You're muted, Leah.
Did I send it to Read AI meeting notes? I might have. Let me try it again. All right. I click chat.
Yes, and then it says to, and you're able to select a specific person or meeting group chat.
I sent it to the AI people or non-people, the non-gendered AI. I don't know. How about now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
No
So
worries.
March 12th is that due date. Leah's information is on there. Any flyers, brochures, stickers, pins, stress balls, pens, anything of that sort that you would like to have included. We want this to also be an opportunity to highlight all the amazing organizations that make up the coalition. So thank you so much.
Well, this is fantastic. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know why I'm emotional, but I was like getting chills as you were going over and talking about how like registration's already full. We have all these youth coming and all the proposals that were submitted. It's just amazing to see how much this effort is growing. And you know, I know last year, Vico, you had started like the month before. So it's also amazing to see how much you've been able to accomplish and the working groups as a whole, right? And to see how well everything is being organized. So congratulations and thank you guys so much for all of your hard work. I cannot wait. I think it's going to be a fantastic event. All right. So for the not so fun stuff, now I want to talk about the bylaws. Before I get into the nitty-gritty details, I do just want to give a shout out to the steering committee because we're technically the governance working group, right? Like, so we took on that working group piece. And so we were I was feeling behind on being able to get this to you. And so I begged everybody and they like blocked off their calendar for multiple days last week so that we could really just focus on the bylaws and get them done. So I really appreciate the amount of time and effort that they put in to help to make this happen. I do want to say these bylaws are draft. And so we want to make sure you have time to review and that we get your feedback. One of the biggest things and why I think it's so important is when we had the strategic planning effort, you know, one of the biggest things we heard from you all was we need to have more understanding about how decisions are made, how these processes are happening. And I was feeling the same way. So I think it's really important that we get these bylaws in place and just for, you know, transparency and also so that we all know how to, you know, be doing these things with the coalition. So we sent the bylaws out with the meeting agenda. I'm not going to go through line by line all of the bylaws, but I did spend some time today thinking about what are some of the biggest pieces that I think everyone should know. And so I put some slides together just to go over those pieces. So Vico, if you could advance to slide 1. So these are all of the different articles for the bylaws that we had created. And again, I'm not going to go through them. Please feel free, you know, to read everything line by line. But, you know, essentially, we talk about name and purpose, membership structure, how decisions are made, how we're going to keep records, how we're going to communicate, how we're going to evaluate and give feedback. So if you'll go to the next slide, what I want to do here is pull out some things. So for Article 1, that was already predetermined. That came directly from our strategic plan. Our Article 2, the membership piece, came directly from our membership working group, and it's what we had voted on. So those things are pretty easy. But then there is the piece in Article 2 that has organizational structure, and I just want to go over some of these pieces. So Vico, if you can advance the slide one more. And I like that Michael had fun with the bylaws because it was definitely not my forte. Okay, so this is where we landed to, you know, as proposed for organizational structure. So the coalition will have a steering committee. It will consist of the following members. There'll be a chair and a vice chair, which we've had. The thing that's a little bit different this year is we're saying there's going to be up to 3 members at large, and those are going to be elected positions. And then we'll have 2 representatives from the coalition secretariat, and those representatives are appointed. So right now, those representatives obviously are going to be Vico and Michael. Next slide, please. Other components that go back to that organizational structure is going to be the secretariat. So we did spend a little bit of time talking about, you know, what is the secretariat? What is the role? Right now, our secretariat is the Pima County Health Department. this is where we were originally formed. But in the bylaws, you will see that if in the future, the Pima County Health Department, for whatever reason, cannot serve as the secretariat, there's a process for selecting a new secretariat. So please, if that's something that's of interest to you, look at that section of the bylaws to make sure that you agree with the process. And then any coalition member can run for chair, vice chair, or a member at large. The way that you do so is you submit a written statement of intent to the coalition secretariat in April of the election year. So this April, we're going to be opening this up, and we would love as many of you as possible to submit. You can nominate yourself, you can nominate someone else to serve in those seats. All right, next slide, please. I think I got ahead of myself because I think the next slide is the nomination process. So again, you can self-nominate or you can nominate another individual. Next slide, please. And then the election process, we're keeping this a little bit open. So we're saying we are going to hold elections in either May or June. And then votes will be cast by all active coalition members that are present at the meeting. Each member may vote one time per elected seat, and then it will be determined by a simple majority. Next slide. So then we spent some time looking at decision-making process. And I think, we've kind of been figuring this out as we go. So for me, I love having a finalized kind of way that this is drawn up. So voting, what we're proposing is that votes are made using Robert's Rule of Order, using formal vote, and then each participant is given the opportunity to voice their opinion, and the decision will be determined based on a 2/3 majority vote. In case of a tie, the coalition chair will have the final say. If a decision has to be made prior to a coalition meeting, this is something that we've struggled with because sometimes a grant has come up that we've needed to apply for before the next coalition meeting. Then what we've done is we're now saying the steering committee will make the decision using Robert's Rule of Order. And then obviously revisions to the bylaws can be made and approved by the steering committee with input from coalition members. Next slide. Then we have a different article on fiscal decision-making. Oh, sorry, I'm out of order here. Let's do this one. So record keeping. So the secretariat will be keeping the records, and then we went through, which records we would maintain, which led to an interesting discussion. Because when we talked about these recorded meetings, right, we are recording these meetings that are held on Zoom. Where should the meetings be housed? And so we think we would like to house them on a YouTube channel. So that way, if we have future members that are interested in the coalition and they want to watch some of the meetings to see what we're about, they can do that. But it also raised some questions about, is the coalition comfortable with having our meetings that are recorded posted on YouTube for the public? And so I wanted to give a second, because this was kind of a question mark that we all had. So I wanted to give a second to see what your thoughts were, if you're comfortable with these meetings getting posted on YouTube, or, the alternative is that we could still post on YouTube, but it would be a private link. And so we could kind of try to figure out how that would look as opposed to it being a public link. Let me just pause there and see if anybody has any feedback for me on that. Is anyone opposed to us posting the recorded meetings on YouTube via a public link?
Could I ask a silly question? Not that I think that there's anything scandalous ever said in these meetings, but I'm thinking back and I'm like, is it going to be recordings from here on out? Is it going to be select recordings? Are we able, I guess, just to know what's going to be posted?
Sure. Vico, you have your hand up, so I'm assuming you have an answer to that.
Yeah, so I think so originally the way that the recordings were handled is that right now they're being posted on the Pima County Health Department's School Support Line YouTube channel. I believe that they were all being posted on there because back in the day when the coalition first started, it was still during COVID, and folks were only attending virtually, and many of them would watch the recordings afterwards. So since I've been the secretariat for the coalition, I've just kept the same process. And so every month I take the recordings and I upload them to YouTube. The idea is to have basically an archive of all of these meetings, and I think it's both for the history of the coalition and also for transparency of what our meetings look like. So to answer, like to partially at least answer your question, as far as I know, all meetings have been recorded except for the ones that we've done in person recently, starting this year, which we've done quarterly in-person meetings. Those have not been recorded. The only record keeping that we have of those in-person meetings has been the notes that I take and then also upload and share with the coalition via the newsletter. And you can also now find all of those meeting agendas, meeting notes in our coalition Google Drive.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And Michael, thank you. I see your response in the chat. So from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, these are kind of already out there anywho?
Correct.
Okay, great. Like I said, I'm not scared. I just want to know. And I thought that that might be, if it's coming to mind for me, maybe other people were thinking so. So I really appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
No problem.
And that was exactly the conversation we had. We just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it, because I think it has kind of gone through this iteration, right? But then also that we're comfortable with it moving forward.
I'll share too that moving forward, I mean, this Article 5 doesn't talk about how it would be listed on YouTube, but I think leaving it flexible allows us to either list it publicly or restricted, so meaning those with access to the link. So generally, these are landing, the uploaded videos to YouTube are embedded in our PBHC newsletter that goes out to everyone. So if you miss a meeting, you're able to get caught up and watch these, or if you were there, you can refer back to them. But I don't know that there is a need. I mean, unless, like, I don't know who would be that bored to want to watch our meetings if they're not part of the PBHC. So I would say, like, it's fine if we restrict them. However, if your Pima County Health Department, which is where they're currently posted, I don't think that we can list them restricted because they're of public domain. So this passes it over to the coalition to have a little bit more autonomy and agency.
Thank you.
And Stacy's comment in the chat also said, for my organization's board meetings, we just post meeting agendas and meeting notes, which help filter some of the discussions we had. So I agree that's another option that we could go and might even be better, just because it allows people to catch up faster. So they don't have to, kind of listen to all of that back and forth. So I don't know. I don't know that where that lands us in terms if anyone has a preference. I think it's good for us to have the recorded meetings. I definitely want to still record. But moving forward, should we look at a coalition YouTube channel and then it's listed as private and people with only the link can see it? Or do we just make it public and say we have nothing? I mean, we obviously have nothing to hide, right? And so it's public and anyone that wants to see it can. So I'm guessing there's no strong feelings either way based on the silence.
I think for the purposes of bylaws, right? You also want your bylaws to give structure, but also provide flexibility for you to operate. And so I think this provides enough structure to where the steering committee, right, the governing body of the coalition, is empowered to make the best decisions for the safety and sustainability of the coalition. And this can fall into that category among anything else in these bylaws. It's my 2 cents.
Okay. Raquel, I have a question for you about the link. If we were to make it like restricted and you have to get it by the link only, how does one get that link?
I believe the best way to do it would be Vico would have it as the secretariat, right? And then when we had new members that were interested, Vico could send them the link, like, you know, here's the last meeting in case you wanted to watch it. That's kind of how I envision that would look.
Okay.
And again,
And-
they're generally embedded in the newsletters.
So it would also be in the newsletter. So that link in the newsletter would be a direct link that could work. Yeah.
Okay. I guess my question is, do we have like a Zoom account where we can just like send the recordings from Zoom? Or does not that work?
We would just need to create the YouTube channel for the coalition, which is easy enough to do. I don't think the health department can do it, but like you or I could create a YouTube channel, and then from Zoom, all of the meetings would just get uploaded from there.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, we'll see how it goes. I think that I'm okay with it being on YouTube.
Okay. And I think too, that was kind of the intent, is I wanted to make sure everybody was aware that the meetings are being recorded and right now are being posted on YouTube, and we'll explore the best way to do that moving forward. All right, so then if we could go to the next one, which was the fiscal decision making. And so this one I also wanted to highlight because, you know, again, as this year has gone on, we've had to make certain decisions, and I think we've started to develop a process, but an important one to pull out to make sure everybody is aware. So where we landed on this one is all financial decisions must align with our mission, priorities, and resources. The steering committee oversees financial management and ensures transparency, accountability, and sustainability. Major financial decisions, including budget approvals and expenditures exceeding a predetermined threshold, require the majority vote of the steering committee. And then we've had this thing with fiscal agents as well, given that we're not a 501c3. So we also added the coalition may designate a fiscal agent by 2/3 majority vote to manage funds, process transactions, yada, yada. And so we just went through that, right, with using Not My Kid as the fiscal agent for the Arizona Complete Health grant that we got. And so again, I think bringing it to the coalition for the formal vote, and then the steering committee can approve any formal agreements outside of that. If the coalition votes, yes, we do want them to be a fiscal agent. And then I think there's one more slide that I just wanted to point out on the bylaws. It still continues on fiscal decision making. Oh no, it was the same. I'm sorry. That was it. That was it for the bylaws. So in terms of next steps for the bylaws, definitely want to give you guys time to review them. I'd love to hear if you have any feedback today, but the plan is give you guys time to review them, and then at our next meeting, which will be in May, we will vote on the bylaws. So that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at. And so I do want to open it up to see if anybody has any feedback, questions, discussion points around the bylaws. Okay. I think that's a good sign. So hopefully we're on the right. Yes, go ahead, Anne. Anne, did you have your hand up? I thought Anne's hand was up. Anne, did you have your hand up? Did you want to say something? Okay. Are you having difficulty getting off mute? Okay. I'll keep going. If you can get off mute, then just let me know, okay? Otherwise, we can follow up later. Vico, if you could move forward, I want to talk a little bit about elections. And then I think we're going to end a little bit early, which is never a terrible thing. So as I mentioned, as we were going through the bylaws, our nomination process will be opening soon. We're going to open it in April. And so we'll be looking for people to run as chair, vice chair, and then the 3 member at large positions. I do want to encourage everyone that's interested to please consider running for a seat. This is or has been my 2nd year as chair, and so I do believe strongly that it's time for me to not be the chair this coming year and let somebody else step in to kind of change up the leadership and make sure that this is community based. So I will say I am not going to be running as chair this year. So anyone that's interested, please consider it. I know it's an additional responsibility, but it has been such a pleasure and it's so important for keeping this running. And I see Adrienne is saying the same. So she also has been the vice chair 2 years in a row. And so she's probably feeling like maybe it's time to step a bit back from that. So just wanted to be, if anyone's considering it, go for it. Fully transparent about it. And then we will hold the elections in either May or June, and we'll just have to see how everything kind of fleshes out in terms of that May, Michael, in terms of the May meeting. If I could, let's go to the next slide. Let's do our call to the audience. And then I want to wrap up with the schedule for the next couple of months because things are looking a little bit different. So call to the audience, and go ahead.
Just the question. Oh, you're talking about the call to the audience, the announcements.
Yes, but if you wanted
Okay.
if you also wanted to say something about the bylaws, if now is perfectly fine.
I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself before. I couldn't get to the right button. But I was wondering, because I thought I heard you say the next meeting was May, and I wondered about April, but it sounds like you're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. So that's what my question was.
Okay.
But is now the time for the announcements?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So is it possible to put up that flyer for Take Back the Night? And then I'm wondering if there's anybody in the meeting today that is actually serving on this year's planning committee for Take Back the Night, because probably be more appropriate for someone on the planning committee to share information about the event that is scheduled for April 2nd. So that's obviously coming up, and it would be before our next meeting if in fact we're going to meet in April, which I guess is a question. It's on that's on Wednesday night, April 2nd, and it's at the U of A, Mall, and they're going to be having a resource fair and a 5K walk, run, wheel, in terms of wheelchairs. But that's why I was kind of looking for that flyer that has information on it for folks to follow up. And Vico has it as well. So when he sends out the newsletter for this month for March, there'll be some more information in it. Yeah, there we are. So it starts at 5, goes to 8 o'clock in the evening. So once again, now it's, of course, originally Take Back the Night was always held in the evening at night. But there have been times when it's been held during the day. And last year, the event was during the day, actually on the U of A Mall as well. I think it was Saturday morning, but I may be wrong about that.
Great.
So,
and I think we can send the flyer out as well, where you provided Vico with a copy. Sorry, were you going to say more, Ann?
And I just wondered if, as I said, if there was anybody that's in the meeting today that's serving on that organizing committee, that planning committee, that might want to highlight some of the all the planning that you all are doing, that group is doing.
Doesn't sound like it, but it sounds like an amazing event.
Yeah. Just wanted to be sure that people were aware of it, particularly because it will be coming out before we meet again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ann. Any other things you want to bring to the coalition's attention? Any other call to audience items for anyone?
Just
I have a call to the audience. We are hosting, oh gosh, this might be the 12th annual Diverse Voices in Prevention Cultural Humility Conference on June 26th. And call for proposals is out as of today. They are due on March 28th, and we have a mental health theme this year, and we're looking for interactive presentations for 45-minute workshop sessions. So if anybody wants to, I'll put my email in the chat. If anybody wants me to send the form for you to apply to do a workshop session at Diverse Voices in Prevention, please let me know. Thank you.
Can you also send the information to Vico so that we can send it out to the coalition?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Vico, I sent it to all of the past people who've like attended those types of events. Did you get the email already?
I think so. Yeah, I'll double check, and if not, I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. And I think I heard somebody else try to say something.
It was me. I'm just swinging back to make sure it doesn't get forgotten. So March 12th is the final day for goodie bags, and Leah from the library is on the activities work group team here is your contact, and that information is in the chat. So if you haven't emailed her already, please do so today so that she can coordinate with you for drop-off of materials.
Awesome.
Right now, we only have
What's her
materials
email?
from one group.
What's her email, please? Can someone put it in the chat?
In the chat already.
Yeah.
Let me copy it and I'll repaste it.
Thank you.
There you go. Anything for you, Kate Meyer.
Ah. Goodness.
If I can real quick, our team, the Community Mental Health and Addiction Division over at the Health Department, is offering QPR suicide prevention training. If you're familiar with QPR, you know, but it's question, persuade, refer. And we've actually been offering it to high school students. So if you are interested, you work with the youth in that age group or know anyone within the schools who might be interested. It's about an hour and a half, but we work with, if it's a classroom setting, if we need to do an hour, we absolutely can do that. But we'd love to connect. So if you're interested, I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat, and just let me know.
That's awesome. All right, so Vico, if you could advance the slide. So I do want to just kind of go over the next couple of months and what our schedule is looking like. So as we all know, we have the Youth Mental Health Summit on Thursday, March 27th, all day. As a result of that summit, we did decide not to hold our virtual April coalition meeting. We really want to encourage you guys to all come to the summit so that we can see you face to face and spend the day with you. So you get out of the April meeting, we want you at the March 27th meeting. And then next slide, please. So that what that means is because there's no April meeting, our next coalition meeting will be Thursday, May 1st. I lost the T on the end there. And it will be another virtual meeting. So you will hear from us though in the meantime, because as I said, elections will be, or nominations will be open through April. So we'll be sure to communicate that out to you guys to remind you to either nominate yourself or someone else. But yeah, so we'll see you for the Youth Summit and then we'll see you on May 1st again. Yes, and bless you, Anne. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thanks, everyone. We're getting out a little bit early, but I think with everything in terms of what all the working groups have done, you guys totally have deserved and earned this extra 30 minutes of time to give back to you. So we hope to see you all at the summit. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.